this class.
Because I was gonna ask you if you were recording, but you had a little thing it was running, so.
Yeah, I don't remember. Okay, so this is where we left off with the most recent PC part. We left off with the optical drive. In fact, we just had a weird one today that we haven't ever had. Mr. Wassam had a PC that when the PC came on, it said D drive not found, which is what the optical drive is in most cases, but it popped the drive open and then wouldn't finish starting. And I don't know why it would pop the drive open. That's a new one to me. So at some point I have to go over there and see what the deal is with that. So this was our last permanent storage. Again, one of the things that when it comes to storage you're going to learn about is that we've got primary and secondary storage. And when we talk about primary and secondary, this is a Microsoft term. It's primary to the CPU, okay? So primary storage to the CPU is memory, and secondary storage to the CPU is really the storage that's primary to us, and it's things like hard drives, optical drives, flash drives, floppies, which I know none of you guys ever even used floppies before? Is that so old that it's just crazy to even mention floppy drives? There are still teachers that have tons of their stuff backed up on floppy disks. So, huh?
I find that very funny.
Well, and the thing is, a flash drive holds the equivalent of, depending on the size of your flash drive, of 8,000 floppies now. If you have an 8 gig flash drive, the floppy drive is over 1.44 meg of data. So why would you ever use a floppy drive anymore? But anyways, those are all a secondary storage because they're secondary to the CPU because the CPU doesn't use them. Things get moved from here to there. The other thing is that when we talk about primary memory or primary storage, it's always volatile or temporary in that it goes away when the PC's powered off. And permanent storage is not, or secondary storage is permanent. Not meaning that it can't ever go away, meaning that the power has nothing to do with saving it. Okay? So when you turn off your computer, all your data is still on your hard drive, but anything that you had in memory is gone. Okay, so we've got these two kind of opposites. This one's way fast, but it's volatile, it's temporary, it goes away when the power's turned off, and it's what the memory uses for storage, or CPU uses for storage. And then we've got secondary, which is permanent, and it's these kind of things, which we'll get into more. There are hard drives that, like the hard drives on your laptop, are really memory. It's configured differently so that it doesn't go away and the power gets turned off. Okay, so those are our types of storage, and our optical drive was the last one of those that we talked about, okay? All of these secondary storages do require power to work because they all have, most of them have moving parts. And when I say most of them, because when I look at this, hard drive requires power. It doesn't just have a data cable. Optical drives don't just have a data cable, they also have a power cable to make them work. Floppies have a power cable. Flash drives do get power, but they get power through the USB. They don't have there's a one connector that gives them power and allows the data to connect to the motherboard and be transferred. Okay, so our last big part of our computer is our video card. Okay, video cards have evolved to be PCs in their own right. In fact, this gamer video card here is far more powerful than the Windows PC, but the original IBM PC over here. This is an original IBM PC right here. I bought it at a garage sale for $0.25 just so I'd have one, but this is what the original PC looked like. And this is what the original floppies were, and the reason they were called floppy is because they're floppy, that's what we know. When most people think of a floppy drive, they think of the hard encased one, but inside it is still a floppy disk, okay? So this is the original IBM PC right there, That one came out with all of 2 meg of RAM when it came out. Okay, so it was a powerhouse. Actually, I don't even think the original had that much in it. And then you've got video cards now that have 5 gig of memory. Okay, video cards are what they turn the bits and bytes and data that the CPU creates into some kind of usable image for us. And the video card is what our monitor plugs into. Every PC, to be usable, has to have a video card. It doesn't have to have one to boot. You could boot a PC without a video card, you just never see anything. I'm not sure how productive that would be. Now, it doesn't mean there's a separate video card. When we look at something like this thin client PC, this is a Windows 7 dual-core PC with 4 gig of RAM in it, all in a nice little box. That has a video output, so therefore there is a video card in it. Okay? Video cards can either be two choices. It can either be integrated on the motherboard pretend that was an OARD. Integrated on the motherboard, or they can be a separate expansion card, okay? And the term expansion card is really used for any card that is plugged into a motherboard that expands the capabilities of the motherboard, okay? So when I'm looking at a motherboard, it may have video on it. This motherboard's got video integrated in it, okay? But that doesn't mean I couldn't put an expansion card on it. Like we said when we were talking about hooking up PCs, if there's a separate expansion card on it, the motherboard always goes to that one first. And I say always with 98% certainty, because I'm sure maybe there's one out there or two out there that don't, but every one I've ever used, if I put an expansion card in here with a video, then it's going to override the one that's on it, okay? So those are our two choices. If Control L on the screen, and I've got two, this is a real basic card, and I'm going to say this is an advanced card. If this is just like a computer, then it therefore has many properties just like its own computer. Okay? A computer has a CPU, a video card has a GPU. So instead of this is a graphics processing unit, okay? So it's got its own brain to it on its own, okay? And just like a computer, a video card requires memory for that graphics processor to function. Okay. On a basic card or an integrated card, many times there's no memory chips on this card at all. Okay? And if I'm saying to you that graphics requires its own memory, and then say I'm going to put in a graphics card with no memory, where therefore must the memory come from? The answer to that is it has to come from the PC itself. Okay? So video cards, bad video cards, basic video cards, or integrated video cards steal the memory that the CPU would be using. Okay? So oftentimes when we look at a PC, and mine's not going to say that, but when I look at the properties on a PC, it will say how much installed memory there is, and then it'll say it's got so much memory, and then only so much of it is usable. Okay? And why would these numbers be different? And this number is different on my PC because my video card, unbeknownst to me, because I haven't looked, is stealing memory from my CPU. Okay? In other words, I've got 16 gig installed, but 1 gig of it is going somewhere. Okay, and that somewhere that it's going is many times to the video card. The video card is stealing it and saying, okay, I'm going to use this, you don't get to use it anymore. So if you get a really basic or integrated video card, you may think you have one amount of memory in your computer when really the computer gets to use a different amount of memory. But on a really nice advanced video card, it's got its own memory on it, which makes it run faster. So if you're a gamer and you don't have a nice advanced card, your game's going to run like poo. Okay, and we're going to learn a lot more about video cards when we get to that point. We're going to talk about what makes a good gamer card and why some cards are hundreds of dollars more than other. In fact, if we look at video cards right now, I guarantee you the price range is phenomenal between what you can see on video cards. We'll get used to looking at this chart later, but if I look at this chart on video cards, there's video cards expensive at $6,133. That's way more than any computer I've ever built. Now this is a video, this Quattro M6000, you're not going to put that in your home PC. It's more used for high-end graphics. I'm sure Pixar Studios has those in their PCs or something. And it's not the fastest one, but it has the most amount of video outputs and processors. This is actually what they're saying is the fastest one right now. So if you wanted the best video card for your PC, you could do it for $629. And all your games could go on the highest setting. This one, we'll go ahead and click on this one. This one comes with 6 gig of RAM inside the video card itself. Kind of curious what the other one, $6,000 comes with. This one has 12 gig of RAM inside its processor. It's just crazy. $6,000. Oh, look, see, it's nice. It's on sale. We can get it for $4,900. Oh, look at this one. 24 gig of RAM on this one. That is crazy. That is an insane amount of memory for just your video card. It's insane. Anyway, so the video card has its own processor and has its own memory, and therefore it is a PC kind of in itself that creates your video. So on the case of a high-end gamer system, you've got this. These can be huge power hogs on your PC. They can take tons and tons of power away from your PC. There are other cards that we can stick in our PC as well. Okay, network interface card, or a LAN card, internet card. People call it lots of things, but they're called NICs, network interface cards. Almost every PC today comes with network integrated into the motherboard. Okay, almost everyone has one plug in the motherboard. Does that mean it's the fastest? No. In fact, in many cases, we have to add an extra network card because the operating system can't use the one that's integrated on the motherboard. In fact, that's one of the things Mr. Anderson's working on across the hall right now, is that many times that network card doesn't work on what we're trying to use it with. So a lot of times, we might have to add a network card into our PC. If we add a network card, it doesn't mean that the one on board doesn't work anymore. If the one on board worked before we added it, it will work after we add it. Okay, we have PCs that have 3 network cards on them, so they can be on different networks at the same time. It's not like video where it turns one off and turns the other one on. It lets you have multiple network cards. And you might put it in because it's faster. You might put it in just because you need to be on 2 networks at once. But that's one of the things that we can add to our PC. In general, we do the opposite. If we get PCs from the Air Force, a lot of times they'll come with an extra card, and we'll take the card out just because it draws power. And if this one works, we don't need a second one. And in the case of all these Dells that we've got here in the last 2 years, they're all fast enough anyways. Speeds of network cards went at 10 meg, and then they went at 100 meg, and now they go at 1,000 meg or 1 gig. put a B instead of an H, 1 gig speed, okay? That's the normal speed of most networks. Our network backbone works at 10 gig now after we did our upgrade this summer, okay? So that's what a network card is, and we may or may not be putting those in. More likely you'll be taking them out. If we get new PCs this year at all and haven't logged on to see what's coming out from the Air Force, if we start getting a bunch of i7s or i5 desktops, a lot of times what you guys will be doing in the fourth quarter, we'll be getting PCs, and you guys will help break them down, take out the extraneous cards, put in hard drives, put in the memory, and help set them up to be new deployments for students or staff, depending on where we're going to put it. Okay, so the last, I think this is the last one, I think, which actually is the subject of the very first component section, is the power supply, okay? So the power supply is one of the few components that's required to make a computer run, okay? There's only 4 real components that are required to make the computer start at all, and that's the power supply, the motherboard, the CPU, and memory. If you have those 4 things, a computer will start. You may not see anything, but it will still start normally, okay? So a power supply turns AC power, the kind that's in the wall, to DC power on these plugs right here, and that's what the computer needs to operate. Okay, in chapter 3 we'll talk more about what AC and DC power is. But the power supply supplies all electrical power to the PC. There's no other power coming into a PC other than the power supply, and it supplies all power to everything that's connected to the PC too. Some things are plugged directly in, like a hard drive. Some things get power through the motherboard, like a flash drive. Okay. There's still power going to a flash drive. There's obviously still power going to our keyboard. That's how things light up. But they come through the computer, through the motherboard itself. Okay. Power supplies are the first thing to die on a PC in general. If your computer isn't starting, it's usually that. Okay, that's causing the computer not to start, or something silly like it's not plugged in. You know how many times we get called to rooms. Staff members will say, my computer won't start. You go down there and plug is laying on the floor. It's very frustrating when you go all the way down to another side of the building and they didn't even look to see if their computer was plugged in when they call us down there to say it won't start. Because maintenance or somebody was cleaning and actually hit a wire or something and unplugged it. I've had teachers unplug their own computers, came in one time, computer won't start, and there's a nice new aquarium right here. They unplugged their own computer to plug in the bubbly thing on the aquarium, and they wondered why their computer wouldn't start. So, computers require power. Power supply does that changing of power, and we've got, well, there's a whole bunch of them sitting up there. And there's different form factors of power supplies, just like there's form factors on motherboards. Where's that one I'm looking for? There we go. This is a very specific power supply for a very specific kind of computer. Okay, it's not standard. Standard ones shaped like that, like all those ones up there, for most PCs. And you really would like, if you ever buy a PC, to get one that has a standard power supply. Because I can buy one of those new for 15 bucks, and I can buy one of these new for 90 bucks. Because it's so specific. Nobody else makes the one that fits in that PC other than the company that the PC was made. So that's what a power supply is. Changes our alternating current from the wall into direct current, and we have all these different plugs that we're going to learn about that plug into our PC to make it work. Okay. And why do I have stuff on this? What happened to my little thing there? What's going on there? No, I got 2 words on top of each other. Why do I have 2 words on top of each other? I can't move it. Okay, control. Lock. There we go. Okay, so in a computer we have hardware, which is all those things we just listed. And hardware is this stuff that we can touch when we work on a PC. We also have a large list of software that runs inside the PC. Okay, so the biggest piece of software that we have inside our PC running to make our PC work is the operating system. You guys know what operating system we use here at Trail? Yeah, Windows 7. Windows 7 is our preferred operating system right now. We'll obviously go to 10 at some point. We skipped 8 and 8.1 because they stunk. Plus, they didn't give us anything new. Okay, it's got to give us something new, some reason. The point of the operating system is to let us use our hardware so we can run programs. And if the new version of Windows doesn't let us do any of those things any faster, any better, give us any new capabilities, why would we switch just because? We stayed on Windows XP for a really long time. Windows XP was a very stable operating system, ran great, didn't require a lot of maintenance. Windows Vista came out after Windows XP, and it was a pile of poo. So we skipped Windows Vista and didn't even touch it. And we didn't really go to Windows 7 until we had we made the lab that used to be in room 209, a Windows 7 lab for a whole year to test out printers. And you guys are going to learn about some of the other software that we have called, if I spell it right, drivers. Okay, drivers are programs on your computer that you don't normally even know they're there. Okay, it's programs running in Windows that makes hardware work. It's software programs that make hardware work. And one of the problems with Windows Vista is that it came out and it didn't have all the drivers to make all the hardware work. So Dell would ship a laptop to you if you bought one with Windows Vista on it. And I had this happen to several students. They bought a brand new laptop and they couldn't use their network card. They couldn't use different parts of their laptop because there were no drivers to make that hardware component work. So they had to ship it back to Dell, and then they put Windows XP on it, and then it worked fine. Okay. The laptops that we used to have in here when this was a graphics lab came with Windows 7. No, they came with Windows 7, and we rolled them back to Windows XP because they didn't have all the drivers to make everything work. So we vetted the drivers for a whole year to make sure we could get everything to print before we actually started switching over to Windows 7 here. I didn't do it all at one time. We just did one room until we could figure that out. So in our software side, the biggest thing we have is an operating system, which Windows 7 is what we're using here. We use some other ones here at National Trail as well. And then the next piece of software is drivers, which make hardware work. And if we don't have that program, then that piece of hardware doesn't work. And then the last piece of software, I'm just going to write programs that we use every day, like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, Paint, whatever you're using on your laptop. Those programs are all pieces of software that run on our computers well. Okay, and the subject of Chapter 2 is really how hardware and software work together, and we'll talk more about drivers and operating systems, and you guys will get a chance to install an operating system or two while we're doing Chapter 2 as well, before we get into hardware. Because we're only going to talk about really software one chapter, and then we're going to go on the hardware, and the whole rest of the course is hardware related. Okay? So, we've got both hardware and software, and then we're going to move on to this, which is talking about how the PC boots. And today's goal is to understand how the PC boots. We're going to talk about some of the hardware components on the motherboard during this section, and we're going to learn what all those terms mean when we talk about the PC boot process. I'm going to get myself a drink of water real quick. Okay, so there's an article that I'm going to have you guys read which I did not have you read yet on the PC boot process. That wasn't yesterday, right? No, you didn't read one yet. Okay, so we're going to learn these 5 terms and how they relate to the PC boot process. And is that my last slide? Well, that's stinky, because I thought I had another slide on there. Okay, so I'll start from here. Blank. Okay. So when we go to turn on a PC, the first thing that happens is we push the power button. And some stuff happens as soon as we push the power button. Okay. When we initially push the power button, there is a wire that goes to our motherboard from the front power button here. And it goes to the motherboard, and then the motherboard immediately does the power check. And that's basically, it goes and it tells the power supply to turn on. When we push that front power button, it sends a signal to the power supply, and the power supply has to send back a good power signal that the power's good. Okay? After it does that initial power check, it runs a post. Okay? It's a power on self-test. Okay? When it runs the post, we may or may not hear beepy sounds on our computer. It's the most basic hardware test that a computer runs as soon as you turn it on. And if all goes well, you might hear one beep, and that's it. But the sound of beeps is generally bad during a PC boot. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna, let's see. I gotta grab one. Actually, I'll do it on this one right here because I've already got it all out. So, and now, so it goes and checks for good power. And by the way, when I do this and I push that button, if it doesn't get good power right away, we may hear no sound at all back, because it didn't even get the most basic power. Return. It may just do nothing, in which case we're going to immediately suspect a couple things. One of which is the fact that it could have a bad power supply. I don't know. There we go. Okay, that's a bad sound. It's a very bad sound. Okay, it's just failed the power on self-test right away. As soon as I plugged it in, it failed the power on self-test. Now in this case, most of the time when we hear that, it means the memory is bad, because it hasn't even gotten far enough to do anything. It happened so immediately. Well, in the case of this one, there's no memory in there. So it's the same as having bad memory. It doesn't pass the memory test, and you start hearing that right away. So if you ever turn on a PC and you start hearing sometimes they are beep codes. They're like beep, 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 beep. And you can look up for a specific motherboard what those beep codes mean. But 90% of the time, if you start hearing a buzzing or a beeping sound like that when you turn on a PC, it's bad memory. And that just happened during the power on self-test. During the power on self-test, it goes around. It tastes really funny. It goes around and does a very, very cursory check of if everything that I need to start is there and if it works. Okay. There's things that it needs to start. It needs good power, which is the first thing it looks for. Okay. It needs a CPU, and it needs memory. It always checks for those things before it goes on with anything else. Okay? So, let's see, of our terms here, the power on self-test. is running. Okay? So the next term that I want to go through is BIOS. Okay? BIOS is a program that's hard-coded onto our motherboard, okay, that does the basic running of the PC before we see our Windows, okay? And BIOS stands for basic, I didn't make any of these names up, by the way, input output system, there we go. Okay? BIOS is a program that runs, it starts the post-test, and then it does some other stuff for us. Okay? BIOS is the basic input-output system. You guys see it run every single time you start a PC. And you guys will get used to getting into BIOS and playing with BIOS because it is a program. And this program determines the hardware and controls the boot of your PC. Okay? It's not a program you ever have to load, although we update it every once in a while on PCs. But it is the first, most basic program that runs on your PC every single time you turn it on. Okay? BIOS is the basic input-output system. It's a program that runs as soon as you turn it on. Okay? BIOS has got to be stored somewhere, okay? And it's stored on CMOS ROM, okay? First of all, actually, does anybody know what ROM stands for? Okay, ROM stands for read only memory. It is memory on your computer on a little chip that is permanent and not, I say not easily changed. It's that way, and it's written on your motherboard when you bought it from Dell or HP or whoever, okay? ROM is read-only memory. It's like a flash drive on your motherboard that they loaded a program onto, BIOS, and it just stays there the whole time you have the PC. Okay? You can update it, but in general, most people, if their PC's working, they never change it at all. Okay? So on your motherboard, there exists a chip, a CMOS ROM chip that holds your BIOS program. And when you push that power button on your PC, it does this little power check, starts BIOS, and BIOS runs our post. Okay? Runs our power on self-test, and it checks out what all's on our PC every single time we start it up. Okay? I know these are all new terms. I don't think many people know. Okay? So we also have another term, RAM. You guys know what RAM stands for? The answer to that should be yes, but you need to remember what it stands for. Okay? What's it stand for?
Isn't it random access memory?
Yep. Random access memory. RAM is temporary. It's usually fast. It's changeable. Okay, in other words, we write to it all the time. Okay. On our motherboard, there also exists some CMOS RAM. Okay? And on that little piece of memory is where the configuration of our computer is stored. And that configuration includes things like the date and time. If it wasn't on there, you never have the right time on your PC, at least until it connected to the internet and got new time. Okay? It also holds a list of your hardware components. That's how your PC, when it boots, knows if you added something. Because it says, you had 2 gig of RAM, now you have 4 gig of RAM. Hey, your RAM just changed. Is that okay? And it actually asks you that on your PC. Not like that, but it does. Okay? And it also holds, and this is one of the things that we're going to change on PCs all the time, it also holds your boot order. In other words, when I start off the PC, what do you want me to look for when I'm getting ready, when I'm done with all my hardware checks? Where do you want me to look to see where the operating system is? Or how do you want me to start up this PC? Okay? When I let me do it with this one. Yes. There might be something wrong with this PI. Let me see. I'm not even sure why the RAM was pulled. Okay, so if I got everything on there, when I turn on my PC, the first thing it's going to do is turn on self-test. In the case of this Dell, you get to see all these lights coming by. Already missed it, but that's okay. We see all these lights going by. That's part of its power on self-test. And it will stop at a certain set of lights for an error if there's a problem with this computer. Not all of them have error lights. Most of them do not. Okay? This is BIOS, this computer. Okay? I hit F2 to get into this BIOS. We can enter BIOS to make changes. In the case of Dell's, it's the F2 button. It could just easily be on different computers the F1 button, the delete button, or the, in some cases of HPs, they like the F10 button. Okay? If I don't know, these first 3 are the most common, F1, F2, and delete. So you will frequently see me on a PC when I turn it on, if I'm trying to go into BIOS, going like this. And all I'm doing is randomly going between F1, F2, and delete as it's starting. I forgot this was on. Okay? And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm trying to get into BIOS to make some kind of change. Okay? So in the case of here at Trail, because 90% of our machines are Dells right now, maybe even more than that, F2 is usually the way to enter into BIOS. Okay? And you have to get it at the right time. If I miss it, it's just going to boot. In fact, those boot really quickly. If you're not sitting there going like this, as it's booting, you will miss it. You don't want to just hold it down. If you hold down the key while it's booting, BIOS will say, oh, you have a stuck key. Therefore, I'm turning off the keyboard entirely, and now your keyboard won't work at all. And in fact, in the case of Dell's, it says stuck key. And then now my keyboard is turned off. So it doesn't work at all. So these are ways to enter into BIOS, the basic input-output system, and make it so we can change these kind of things. Okay? So I'm not going to go through the whole BIOS right now. That's a lot of stuff for us to go through, but there's a ton of things that I can change on this BIOS. This here tells me what BIOS version. It's on version 8.15. Tells me the service tag, the express code. It tells me the address of the network card. It says this was made August of 2010. And I think we just rebooted. Did we just reboot? I think we did. this PC, now that I know which one it is. This is one that was a server in room 305, and it kept rebooting on it, which is not a good thing for a server. So I took it out of service. Let's see if I can get it to come back on. And I've taken no time to try to troubleshoot this one yet, so let's see if. Maybe not. Maybe I'm not going to get it back at all right now. And we're stuck with a flashing 1 and 2, and I can look that up, but I'm not going to right now what that means. But that means something. So and if you look up on the Dell site, look that up, you'll be able to find out what's wrong with it. We're not going to go that far into depth today anyway. So we can change some things on there like the date and time. We can't really change the hardware components. We can turn them on and off. When BIOS goes through and does its self-test, it goes and says, I found these things. It doesn't give the option of not finding those things. It either found them or it didn't. But it lets us say, okay, do I want to use this hard drive? Because I can turn it off or I can turn it on. Do I want to use this CD-ROM? I can turn it off, I can turn it on. And I can change the boot order, or where does it go from here? And that's what the boot order really is. And in general, here at Trail, our boot order looks something like this. It goes CD-ROM, NIC, hard drive. And what that means is that when I boot something here at Trail, the first thing it's going to do is say, is there something in that CD, and do you want me to use it? So I'm going to turn off this PC, since we know this one works. And just so you know, we have, and this is a user setting that we have set. We have Trail PCs set to shut down if you push the power button. Okay? Some PCs go to sleep. We have ours set to shut down, just so somebody can walk by and push the power button. And let's see if I got that in there in time. Okay? Can you guys see the screen? Okay? This is set to go to the seat. It should be set. In fact, I'm going to check it again. It's a Dell, so and it says up there F2 to enter setup. Oh, that's the. I was like, what is making that sound? Okay, so in here I can set the boot sequence, and it is set right. So I just changed it so it was set like that. These two were backwards. So what it does is after it does its self-test and it's done running BIOS, it goes and checks this boot order and says, okay, you've said you want me to go to the CD-ROM first. So I'm going to go to the CD-ROM. I put a CD-ROM with an operating system on it called Ubuntu. Okay. So it's now saying, well, you said the CD-ROM, so I'm going to boot from the CD-ROM, and it's going to come up and do whatever. And we have it set to that on most PCs first for you guys, because later on in the school year, when we get to that section, you guys are going to be running around. Running around with a disk called the Ultimate Boot CD. With a disk called the Ultimate Boot CD, testing hard drives and memory on PCs. So when we get to the memory chapter, you guys are going to go around and test all the computers in the district's memory. And what you don't want to have to do is go into BIOS every single time you come up to a PC. It'd be nice if we could just drop the CD-ROM in, restart the PC, and it boots from the CD-ROM. Okay? If there's no CD-ROM in it, when it gets to the boot order, BIOS says, is there a CD-ROM there? Nope, go to the next thing. Okay? So it immediately bypasses this. So it goes, checks the CD-ROM, bypasses it, goes to the network card. I'm going to go ahead and restart it, because it really doesn't. I'm not going to hurt anything by doing what I'm doing, because it's trying to boot from the CD anyway. That was actually an installation CD. So if there's nothing in the CD-ROM, then it goes to the network card, and it looks to see if there's something on the network to boot from, and there is, okay? We have a server on the network that will wipe any of the computers in the network if you want it to. And so it goes and does a network boot, which is what it's doing right now. And every computer, when it comes up, comes to this system called fog for 3 seconds. Okay? Now, I can do things with fog, like I can run a memory test right from now. So it's actually booting from the network, and now it's going to go and do a memory test on this computer and check to see if the memory is okay from this computer. So we don't have to have a disk. This isn't the best memory test. I don't like this memory test. You'll learn why I won't get to that spot. But if I was out and I didn't have a disk and this computer was acting funny, I can test the hard drive, and I can test the memory, and why didn't I do it? Should have done it. Don't know why I just didn't do it. I just told it to do a memory test. Didn't do it. So then it went on to the hard drive. So it goes, BIOS says, is there an operating system in CD-ROM? Nope. Is there one at the NIC? Yes, but it actually said to go ahead and boot from hard drive, and then it goes to hard drive. And we set that boot order up through the BIOS. And we save it somewhere, okay? And the place that we save it is that CMOS RAM. Okay, now I said that everything goes away from RAM if you remove power. And we remove power from PCs all the time, but we don't have to reset that. How is that possible?
That motherboard, a different motherboard, example.
If I can find one. Yes, okay. So, this motherboard is disconnected, and yet the configuration is still saved on it, even though it's sitting in a closet. Why? I have said it requires electricity to hold the stuff in RAM. So how is it holding the stuff in RAM? Motherboard. Is there any electricity on this motherboard? Really? Come on, look.
Yes.
What? Where?
I don't know. The battery.
Oh, there's a battery right there, and that's what that whole purpose of that battery right there. Okay? If I take out the battery, I lose the configuration. If I take out the battery and the battery dies, then every single time I start the PC, it will say date and time, not set. Enter F2, hit F2 to enter setup or something like that. Okay? If that battery isn't there, the configuration is gone. Because RAM requires power because it's volatile, and the power is right there in the CR2032 battery. Okay? And if this $2 battery goes out, then it will bug you every single time the computer restarts. Okay? So that battery is important, and it's one of the biggest things that bug teachers, because if they could boot up the PC and it'll say, which is a bad message, it'll say something like system power low. Okay? It doesn't say battery dead, it says system power low. And then what do teachers think? Teachers think there's something wrong with my computer's busted because the power's low. And then they put in a work order. Okay? Because really all that's wrong is this battery is dead. And it's bugging them every single time they start the computer. It says hit F1 to continue or F2 to enter correct date and time. So every single time when they come in the morning, they're going to hit F1 until we go and change out this battery. Whenever we part out PCs, we steal the batteries. I've got a bag of batteries over there, so even when we put in a battery, it may not be a new one, because these batteries can last for years and years and years. Okay, most of you have probably never seen that message before, but that's all that battery does. The CMOS battery holds the configuration data in CMOS RAM. It's a test question. The CMOS battery holds configuration data in CMOS RAM. Okay? That chip on the motherboard that holds the date and time and the boot order, and it holds the list of hardware in my PC is held there by that battery in CMOS RAM. So when I go back to these things, this is got a matching question on your test, by the way. when I go back to this list, okay, CMOS ROM holds the BIOS program. CMOS RAM holds BIOS configuration data. Okay, or holds the BIOS configuration. Okay, so when I push the power button on a PC, it sends a power signal to make sure it's got good power. Then it goes and starts the basic input-output system, which starts the power on self-test, which checks everything else out in the computer to make sure everything's good. It also does a basic inventory list of what's on this computer and says, has anything changed? It checks CMOS RAM for new stuff and tells us if there's new stuff, some new stuff. It doesn't tell you if you have a different keyboard plugged in. It doesn't care. It kind of has a priority list. But if the amount of system memory has changed, if your video setup has changed, many times it'll say, memory changed, hit F1 to continue. And it just wants to know that you know that something may have been stolen. Okay? And I say that seriously. When I was in the Air Force, we got a whole bunch of new RAM for PCs. And we put them in all the PCs and upgraded the RAM. And within a month, about 10 to 20% of the computers didn't have new RAM anymore. People, whoever, had gone, wow, I could use more RAM at home. And they took it out. Okay? I don't know, I don't get on every single computer in the whole squadron, right? But somebody got on and it said, system memory's changed. Hit F1 to continue, and they went, oh, and hit F1. They probably assumed that they just got more, and in fact, somebody had stolen some of their memory. I don't know. We ended up having a big squadron meeting about it. If you stole memory from the computer, give it back. Kind of thing. So I get this. After the BIOS program loads and it's done all of its tests, the next thing it's going to do is look for where we want it to boot from. And so it goes to the boot order that's saved in CMOS RAM, and it says, okay, where am I supposed to check? I already checked the CD-ROM, nothing in the CD-ROM. I'm going to the network boot. It's checking the network boot, which slows down all of our computers from booting by about 10 seconds. But all of our PCs, I want to know why that didn't work. I want to try that again, see what happens. There's something wrong, because it just tried to run it and it was already done. That's what went by so fast. So the network boot slows down all the PCs, but we have them all auto turn on before you guys ever see it. Nobody goes into 210 and starts a PC. They're all auto started every single lap, okay? In the case of your guys' PCs, your laptops, we don't have the same boot order, okay? We have it set to go hard drive and NIC, and that's it. So when you guys turn on your PCs, they immediately go to the solid state drive and they boot right away, which is why your guys' if we had it the other way around, it would sit there for an extra 10 to 15 seconds looking for a network boot, and you'd be like, oh, what's going on? Why is this taking so long? So there's a reason to change the boot order. Network boots only work when you're plugged in anyways. How often do you guys plug in your laptops? Never, right? I mean, never. So there's no reason to do that. The reason it's in the order at all is because one of the things, well, let's start, all right. One of the things that you can do while it's booting is hit the F12 key. That is a F112 key. Let's see if I can, there we go. F12 key. If you hit the F12 key during a boot, it allows you to choose the boot order differently this time. Okay? You guys can do that on your laptops too. So if I am starting this one, I should try to swing towards you guys, and then I said shut down again. going, why? What are you doing? Okay, so if I start this one, and F12 is a del key, some other ones have different ones. So if I sit here touching the F12 key while it's starting, it brings up a boot menu. And all this is saying is, okay, normally I start one order, but how do you want me to start this time? And I can say, hey, I just want you to go straight to the network boot, because that's where I'm going to boot from. Now, it doesn't matter on this one because the network came before the hard drive. But in your case, if I've got your laptop over here and I've got it plugged in over here and I want to wipe your drive, I can just see here hitting F12 and then say, hey, I want to wipe the drive, which I can do through that fog system. And then totally wipe your drive, which is why when Lane comes in during intervention and I have those big signs up there, which they don't understand what they mean, but they'll understand when they get their computer back and it's clean. And he goes, hey, Mr. Poole, it keeps giving me this error, or Word won't start, or whatever. Like I had a student come in the other day already, he's like, I tried to load Minecraft on my PC, and now it's acting all funny. And I'm like, oh, I'll fix it. Plug it in, and I hit F12, and I say, wipe the drive, and everything's back to the way I gave it to him, and now it's fine again. Because I could spend forever troubleshooting every single software problem, or I can just go wipe it all and give it back to you, and it's all fixed. Because you guys have a way of finding ways to break stuff. You know, especially gamers who are trying to find their way around stuff on a computer that really, those are not gaming machines. Some of them have really good video cards. But anyways, so I can hit the F12 key and change the boot order and go straight to something if I want to. Okay, and that's a BIOS option too. BIOS just let me do that when it was booting. That stuff goes by so fast that many people don't even see it. And these boot fast enough, but if you're not sitting here going F12 or F2 from the get-go, you're never going to see it. Okay, so that is my intro to the boot order. And then, I thought I had it on the slide already. Oh man, me is killing me. I don't know what I did. I thought I already had it on that slide, but evidently I did not. Where I put it. I don't know where I put it. I don't know. I'll look for it next time.